What happens when the world's most trusted tractors suddenly refuse to cross the border? Why should every one of us be watching this crisis unfold? I first noticed the lineup of John Deere tractors behind me, and I know these machines, inside and out. I've always admired Deere's innovations and seen their green and yellow badge as a mark of American farming pride. But just days ago, the company confirmed it will shift much of its manufacturing to Mexico, and right now, America's farmers have struck back in the most dangerous shutdown in modern food history. And nobody is prepared for the fallout. Thousands of tractors are parked at the border. Customs protocols have been weaponized, and Deere's leadership is conspicuously silent. This isn't just mechanical failure, it's a rebellion. From the cornfields of Iowa to the citrus groves of Sonora, farmers are taking back control. And the ripples are already devastating industries, economies, and dinner tables. How did we get here? Why now? And what does a sudden halt in food production mean for us all? Stay with me, because by the end, you'll see this is about far more than farming, it's about survival. The silent border. Strike that paralyzed an industry. They called it an inspection, but in reality, it was a full blockade, aimed at Deere's heart. 3 weeks ago, Mexican Customs announced enhanced agricultural equipment inspection protocols. In practice, it was surgical at Laredo and Nogales crossings. Over 140 John Deere tractors and harvesters were stopped, baked in the sun, while competing brands Case IH and Kubota sailed through without delay. Deere's global logistics network was blindsided. Timing couldn't have been more brutal. Mexico's critical planting season was less than a month away. Tens of thousands of acres needed tilling, fertilizing, and seeding, yet the vital machinery sat stranded. Farmers who had prepaid for equipment faced not merely an inconvenience, but a disaster. On the U.S. side, Deere's logistics teams raced to reroute shipments. On the Mexican side, vague talk of national standards compliance masked a clear message. Deere was no longer untouchable. A decade of farmer fury comes to a head. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment diplomatic spat. It was years in the making. For over a decade, Mexican farmers had endured restrictions that American growers felt too, yet lacked the leverage to fight back until now. Deere's proprietary software locked tractors' transmissions, GPS systems, and diagnostics behind dealer-only interfaces. A simple $50 sensor swap could cost hundreds of dollars in unlock fees. Plus dealer travel and labor turning minor glitches into massive financial hits. On Eduardo Vasquez's 5,000-acre ranch in Sinaloa, his new paid-in-full tractor sat 10 meters away, unusable across the border line. In Nebraska, Sarah Johnson's combine displayed a fault code. The repair boiled down to a sensor, but Deere's lockout meant she shelled out over $500 just to read the error. For farmers who once wore Deere caps with pride, this proprietary stranglehold bred helplessness. Then, rage. In just 5 years across rural Mexico, an estimated 300 farms shuttered due to repair delays and prohibitive costs. Some farmers faced 170-kilometer tows and locked software screens that doomed entire seasons. Leaked internal documents later exposed the strategy. Deere's service model was designed to maximize margins, not uptime. Every cryptic error code funneled farmers back to expensive dealer visits, turning essential repairs into profit centers. When loyalty crumbles, the financial fallout the moment this blockade began. Deere's stock plummeted. On the day Mexican inspections kicked off, the share price opened flattened by midday. It was in freefall. By week's end, the company had lost more than 27% of its market value, the steepest single-week drop in its 185-year history. Wall Street analysts initially blamed border delays alone. But the truth was deeper. Farmers had finally been pushed too far, exposing a fragile business model built on repair revenue. Mexico alone accounts for over $1 billion in Deere equipment sales. and more than $2 billion in parts and service each year. Every stalled shipment triggered carrying costs, penalties, and warehouse backlogs in Salina, Moline, and Waterloo. Credit agencies took notice. Moody's and S&P placed Deere on negative watch due to its market concentration risks and political vulnerability. Borrowing costs climbed as bonds slid, and inside Deere's boardrooms, liquidity projections were slashed as the company burned through some $370 million a week. But the real betrayal was felt most deeply in America's heartland. Michael Peterson, a Kansas wheat farmer, scribed walking away from Deere after he paid $500 to clear a simple code. That invoice shattered decades of loyalty. Almost overnight, his local cooperative diverted $40 million in planned purchases to Case IH and New Holland, declaring they would back companies that support farmers. The American Farm Bureau Federation, a voice for 6 million farm families, publicly demanded full right to repair worldwide, praising Mexico's stance as a necessary corrective. From desperation to digital rebellion as formal complaints were filed, 72 Minnesota farmers launched a class action suit accusing Deere of monopolistic repair restrictions. The farm forums transformed. Where growers once swapped tips on crop rotation, they now traded hacked software and bypass tools. Unauthorized repair collectives sprang up. Green Ghost, an untraceable code patch, allowed farmers to clear fault codes, replace parts, and override shutdowns, liberating tractors from Deere's digital chains. Parts suppliers, frustrated by Deere's policies, began selling directly to end users. Former Deere employees offered discreet home visits. What started as a desperate workaround became a thriving gray market ecosystem. Deere's legal team scrambled. But the digital rebellion was spreading faster than any court could act. The whistleblowers who tore the curtain. The decisive blow came from within Deere. An anonymous Dropbox link in an internal forum revealed 64 pages of documents dated back to 2017. Codename revenue enhancement through service exclusivity. Presented slides showed deliberate blocking of third-party diagnostics and a plan to hit farmers hardest during peak seasons. Thomas Wilson, a former Deere firmware engineer, confirmed the leaks were real. "We didn't build for uptime, we built for margin." He detailed how a $60 hydraulic sensor fault could trigger a full system lockdown, forcing costly dealer intervention. Even more damning were internal emails urging artificial dependencies. If it fails in May, they'll pay by June. 1. Memo read. Quarterly benchmarks measured service revenue growth instead of product quality. As these revelations circulated, trust in Deere evaporated. Farmers felt exploited by a corporation that treated them as revenue streams rather than partners. Harvest. Blackmail and market seismic shifts. Then came reports from Robert Johnson, a former Deere service manager of 2 decades. He laid bare the pricing strategy, storm pricing, harvest pricing, even drought escalation. During crises harvest peak, drought or pest outbreaks, dealer fees spiked, parts became scarce, and repair waits stretched out. All timed to farmers' borrowing cycles. In Missouri and South Dakota, dozens of documented crop losses were directly tied to these deliberate delays. While Deere fumed and denied wrongdoing, rivals pounced. Just 5 days after the whistleblower doc surfaced, Case IH launched its Open Farming Initiative, full diagnostic access, unlimited parts ordering, 0 dealer lockouts. Kubota followed with open-source software platforms for custom farm applications. Mahindra, backed by private investors, pledged to triple its U.S. dealer network within 18 months, offering full ownership at half the cost. Over 140 Deere dealerships entered talks to switch brands. 37 signed intent letters within weeks. Farmers weren't just buying new tractors, they were buying their freedom back. The supply shock that threatens food security, what began as a targeted strike against one manufacturer, quickly morphed into a regional food crisis. Mexico's northern state, Sinaloa, Sonora, Baja California rely on high-efficiency equipment to hit aggressive winter export schedules. With tractors stalled for weeks, planting calendars collapsed. Nearly 1.7 million acres sat unplanted, delaying tomatoes, peppers, lettuce, and avocados. Losses mounted by the millions each day, and us retailers warned of imminent shortages. Futures markets reacted swiftly. Mexican tomato futures jumped 47%. Avocado futures soared until exporters temporarily halted pricing. Food processors from General Mills to Kraft Heinz admitted key ingredients were at risk. A routine safety inspection had escalated into a supply shock threatening food security across North America. The hidden ultimatum behind the blockade leaked. Diplomatic cables painted the full picture. Mexico's customs action was a tactical campaign to force Deere into systemic change. Officials had 4 precise demands: a binding global right to repair policy for all Deere equipment sold in Mexico, no software locks, no dealer-only repairs, a reparations fund for farmers who lost crops or went bankrupt due to restrictive repair practices, a technology transfer agreement to train and equip independent Mexican mechanics, government oversight of critical parts pricing to prevent gouging during emergencies. These conditions were months in the making. Mexican trade negotiators mapped Deere's vulnerabilities, coordinated timing for maximum disruption, and were ready to leverage political and economic pressure. Even Deere's $5 million in lobbying spend and support from over 70% of U.S. Congress couldn't stop the tide. NEFACT